Jake Hollister strode out of the prison gates, breathing deep the fresh air of freedom. After 5 long years locked away, he was finally free. Even better, the cops had never recovered the money from any of his bank robberies before he got caught. Jake's pulse quickened thinking about retrieving the cash he'd stashed inside the walls of his old apartment. As the bus rumbled through the familiar streets toward Jake's old neighborhood, his anticipation built. He pictured slipping back into his old place and pulling bundles of money hidden inside the walls. It seemed almost too good to be true. Stepping off the bus, Jake cautiously navigated the streets until he arrived at the apartment building. He slipped quietly inside and climbed the stairs. The sounds of life from within his former unit dashed Jake's hopes. This was an unexpected complication. Jake spent the next few days watching the new tenant. The name on the mailbox said Sarah. It was pretty clear to Jake that she lived alone. She was the best he could have hoped for. He looked for any opportunity to get inside and find the money. By the 3rd day, he figured he'd have to take his shot. Sarah left for work that morning, and Jake got busy. He picked the lock quickly and slipped into her apartment. He knew exactly where to go and headed straight for the bedroom closet. He stabbed at a section of the drywall with a screwdriver. After 4 or 5 jabs at the wall, Jake suddenly stopped. The sound of a gun cocking froze Jake in place. He knew it wasn't the cops. He'd hear them coming a mile away. There was only one person it could be. He turned to see Sarah pointing a pistol right at him. "You're a dumb son of a bitch, you know that?" Sarah said through laughter. "I found your money years ago. I bought some really nice stuff with it, too." "You found my money?" Jake was devastated. "How much is left?" His depression turned to anger. "Settle down, tough guy," Sarah warned him with the addition of a not-so-subtle motion with her pistol. Sarah spun a yarn about how she'd learned all about Jake from his old neighbors. She had to admit that she had never heard of Jake or the bank robberies, but once she did, she became fascinated. She read everything she could about the case and found out that the police had suspected him in at least 4 other bank jobs, but they couldn't pin anything on him. She also found out that they never recovered any of the money. That's when she decided she was going to find that money. It didn't take her long either. He hid it in the back of the closet right where he had attacked with the screwdriver minutes earlier. "I knew you'd come back here after you got paroled. I even bought this gun just for the occasion. Actually, you bought it for me." She chuckled. She continued calmly. "I have to admit those 5 years went by a lot quicker than I expected." Jake's mind reeled in shock. This perfect mark had been several steps ahead the whole time. A tense standoff ensued, both wary and on edge. Sarah ordered Jake away from the closet. "They seemed plenty long enough for me," Jake growled. "Are you going to call the cops?" he asked. She asked him where the rest of the money was hidden. She knows about the other banks, and there was no way he could have blown through all of the money he took. "I already picked it up. This was the last of it." He didn't want to tell her, but he could see a potential way out. He offered to split the remaining cash in exchange for not calling the cops on him. She eyed him for a while. "How much are we talking?" Jake told her he had nearly all of it still, close to 300 grand, and that some of it was in another spot in the apartment. As Sarah turned to exit the bedroom, Jake made his move, hurling a book at her head. In a blur, he rushed her, desperate to gain control. The gunshot boomed loud in the small space. Jake stumbled back, clutching his gut as crimson rapidly soaked his shirt. He fell to the ground. "So predictable," Sarah muttered and shook her head. She dropped the gun to the other side of the room and picked up her phone. 911? "I'd like to report an intruder in my apartment. I shot him." Sarah did her best to relay the information to the dispatcher through a performance of panic. Despite being told to stay on the line, she hung up. Her demeanor cooled as she returned her attention to Jake. "Hey, Jake, you want to know why I was laughing earlier?" She couldn't disguise her smugness for having pulled one over on Jake. "It's because I've already found all of your loot. It took a while, but I found it all. Every penny you took. The tricky part is trying to launder it. I haven't got a clue, so I've just been spending it slowly. I thought about moving to Denver, but you'd probably track me down. So I waited here." She watched him struggle to understand. "Now that you're out of the way, I think I will check out Denver." As Jake took his final breath, Sarah glanced at her watch, then calmly waited for the sirens. When she heard footsteps running up her stairs, she knelt by the body and put her hands on Jake's belly wounds and pretended she was trying to stop the bleeding. Her story would be simple and her performance would be convincing. No one would ever doubt a word of it.